Hey, everybody. Welcome to the TEConnect podcast. I'm John Martin.
And I'm Dean Reverman.
All right, Dean, this is another one of those ones where we're just going to get to the heart of the matter pretty quickly.
Oh, yeah. We need subject matter experts.
That's right. We need subject matter experts. We're talking about point of sale.
Yes.
We're talking about payments.
That's right.
Something you and I both acknowledge we know virtually nothing about.
Right.
We like to pay for things.
Well, we have to pay for things. Have you met my family yet? We pay for a lot of stuff. Yeah.
But I've heard stories.
There you go. Yeah.
So we're going to talk about that stuff. We're going to talk about what's going on in trends in retail and hospitality. We've got a great panel of guests with us.
Yes, we do.
We actually have a live audience for this too.
Yes, we do.
We're recording this with an actual audience, watching and listening in.
Yep.
They'll be able to ask questions of
Peppering
our
in
panel
some questions. That's right. Yes. Yeah.
We got lots of good stuff for you today. So rather than us take our usual amount of time to banter and try to be witty,
we got to hop in.
We're going to plug in and get connected.
Welcome to the TEConnect podcast. It's time to get connected.
All right, as I mentioned, we have a fantastic episode here.
Yes,
so
we do.
First of all, I want to say a big thanks to Zebra for sponsoring this particular live episode of the podcast.
And some thought leadership for you right there.
They are. And they are a regular sponsor of our podcast, our TEConnect program. We thank them very much. But let's give a quick little shout out to them.
Yeah.
And a little note about something they've got going on. So, Dean, Zebra and BlueStar.
That's right.
We've done it again.
We have.
Well, if you weren't sure what that is, we have combed through our partners' Zebra sales history and created a custom report to help you identify opportunities to update outdated technology and unsupported operating systems. So whether you're trying to get people from 1D to 2D scanners, those kind of conversions, maybe 2G, 3G to LTE devices, EOL Windows to Android devices, maybe upgrading somebody to the cloud in some way. The Zebra Refresh the Base report has it all.
Boom.
Now, live viewers will get a link to request their report in an email tomorrow that'll come from GoToWebinar.
Yep.
If you're listening to this podcast or watching it later, go down to the show notes underneath this episode and you'll find that link there. But I highly recommend checking it out.
Absolutely. Great program.
There's no reason not to request this report. I mean, unless you just don't like making more money.
Right? like fruit right at the bottom of the tree. It's easy to pick.
And we're doing the work for you. You don't have to do it all yourself. We're doing the work for you.
You just got to pick up the phone call.
Exactly. So go check it out. Again, big thanks to Zebra for sponsoring this.
Yeah.
All right, let's quickly roll through our guests, our panel here, our fantastic panel we've got to talk with today, because they're the guys you're going to hear the most from here.
That's right.
This is one of those times Dean and I are just going to lay back and let them do the work for us. So first of all, we have Andrew Kim. He is the Zebra Director of Product Management for POS and Payments. Welcome to the show, Andrew. Andy Szanger, the CDW Director of Strategic Industries. I think that encompasses a lot more than it sounds like.
Right,
but,
yes.
And Andy's actually been on the pod recently. If you go back a few weeks,
yeah,
we had him on talking about customer journeys, experiential shopping, all that stuff. So I recommend checking out that podcast. And then finally, Jeff Riley, the CEO of Retail Management Hero. We wanted to get somebody on the software side of things coming here and chatting with us also. So that's our panel. They're the folks you're going to hear from. So let's get to it. I want to get into some of these questions and conversations here. So first off, let's talk a little bit about the point of sale and mobile point of sale, tabPOS in particular, hot topic in the world of retail, hospitality. So, but I wanted to kind of give this a little bit of thought and think about our most businesses, especially at the SMB level, where I know a lot of our VARs tend to play. Are they still opting for consumer devices? Are they still thinking like, hey, we can manage this with our phones and our devices. We'll buy a bunch of stuff on the cheap and give them out or whatever.
I upgraded my kid's phone, and so we can use this one. It's laying around. Yeah.
Exactly. My iPhone 8 will still work, right? Or do you guys think that the momentum is shifting to purpose-built MPOS hardware, which is what most of us are going to advocate. But what are you hearing out there from actual customers in the field? Andrew, I'll let you kick this one off and answer first.
Thanks, guys. So it's a great topic. One of the things that when in the work that I do, I deal with a lot of the top tier customers and really don't have a view of SMB like I would like to. Those are some things that we'll get to eventually. The question on hand, is there a shift happening at the enterprise level? What we're noticing is that there is a shift. There has been a shift from consumer devices to more purpose-built devices in a general sense. The fundamental reasons are all about durability and life cycles and consistency and manageability, and those are the things that and deployments, right? Consumer devices are great, but after a year or two, you're pretty much done. The support is limited, and really, what people enterprises are looking for are something that's stable and can stand sort of over time, and then they can make the change in hardware when they want to. So yes, there is a shift. There's a couple of large retailers that I'm specifically working with that are looking to replace the front of the store, the checkout that they have, that they're using. They're currently using an iOS device, an iPad, for example, and they've made the shift to Android, and they're going to make the shift at the front of the registers to Android. There's another large retailer that we're working with who's actually considering using their mobile app that they have as the front end for some of the basic POS activities that are going on. And then within the departments themselves in a lot of the large stores, there's a desire to sort of leverage the footprint of the smaller devices to be able to service the customers one-to-one. So again, is it a macro shift that's happening at an accelerated pace? Probably not. Is there a shift that's happening? I believe that there is a shift starting. To say where we're at in that shift is a bit different. We need a little bit more data to see where we end. And unfortunately, COVID didn't help us, but I think that's when the shift started, and then it got sort of delayed. So anyway, long-winded answer to your question. There is a shift that we see in our space. At the SMB level, it's a little bit harder for me to tell at this point.
Jeff, maybe you could chime in there because you're maybe a little bit more in touch with the SMB level. You starting to see some more purpose-built devices there, or are kids still bringing their iPhones and checking people out on that?
Well, the world of SMB is a big and broad ocean.
Yes.
And you start with the small mom and pop retailers who their primary consideration for any technology solution is cost. So they're naturally going to have a discussion with their reseller to say, can we use our own devices instead of buying specific devices for the application that we're interested in? And you often find the resellers getting into positions of, this is just going to be a nightmare for me to support. So they try to educate the retailer on, here are the pros and cons. But then as you move up market into upper SMB, there's more thought and consideration to the overall end-to-end operation and reliability and problems with older devices and aging batteries and not as much of a concern around theft of sort of store-provided devices. And so you get a little more maturity and wisdom in that discussion between the reseller and the retailer. So by and large, we are seeing a little bit of a shift on the mobile device side to purpose-built devices, and it's fueled by more and more mobile solutions becoming the norm for adoption.
This is true. And when you look at some of the statistics around MPOS, nearly 1 in 4 people in the world used mobile payments in 2023 so far. So yeah, you've got a lot of people out there that are clearly starting to get into and utilizing the MPOS world. And Andy, we talked a little bit about this though. Some of the issues with people bringing their own devices into the store establishment, right? You've got security issues, I guess, at the top of the list. Where, well, if you're bringing in a device that's not yours, that's not locked down, what the heck is
the
going on?
same device that you're on TikTok and Facebook,
right.
and
Exactly.
sketchy apps with. Yeah.
So your thoughts on purpose-built, units and MPOS and what you guys are seeing?
Yeah, I definitely agree with both Andrew and Jeff. I think we are absolutely seeing more interest in purpose-built devices, especially in the enterprise space. But even on the SMB side, I think people are starting to realize the complexity of the management, as well as the lack of ability to consolidate a lot of the different functionalities into one device. And then also the durability issues, right? But I think what I'm seeing, especially as you start to move up market, is more so around both the manageability and that, again, going back to the ability to have one device that can do multiple things really well. And so, having communication built in with their point of sale, with their ability to do clienteling and inventory management, having that true purpose-built device for retail, although the initial upfront price might be more, the long-term overall cost of ownership is certainly coming down and giving a better ROI. The other thing is too, I think, sorry, Dean, I think I cut you off there.
Yeah, no, go for it, Andy. Nope, keep going.
The other thing I was going to say is too, it's kind of interesting, when we're looking at mobile payments and different payment technologies that are evolving, is the implication, obviously PCI 4.0 is going to be a huge topic coming up, and the new requirements that are going into place. I think that may also eventually drive more, more users towards a purpose-built device, as the encryption and the security might not be quite where it needs to be, for some companies.
Yeah, actually, if you don't mind, John and Dean, I just do want to sort of feed off of what Andy said about that. So, several years ago, PCI released a specification for, something called COTS-based payment, commercial off-the-shelf devices. So you take a commercial off-the-shelf device, you download an app, you connect the reader, you can have it turn it into a payment terminal. Or in the current state, you don't even need a reader, you just do tap. And there, that was, I believe, built for small business or designed for small business. However, given the cost benefits of doing something like that, there is a shift to this type of COTS-based payment. And one of the cool things about it is that with the right infrastructure solution, you're actually able to secure a device. And then again, even though the idea is that you can do consumer devices or anything off the shelf, bringing it back to this purpose-built MPOS, having an enterprise device with the durability and the life cycle that businesses require is the perfect platform for those types of solutions, because you not only get the benefits of commercial, off the shelf, sort of a payment that's coming with this new technology, but you also get the durability and the longevity with these hardened, purpose-built devices. Which, and again, the best part is that, to Andy's point, it's this multi-function unicorn, all-in-one device where now you can do everything you want on your device and payment, versus being an Android payment terminal and only being able to do payment or a couple apps, or being an Android terminal or a regular payment terminal and only doing payment. So it allows us to start expanding the use cases that a customer can sort of start attacking with these types of solutions that are sort of, I call the next generation.
Yeah. And kind of walking down that space real quick, let's go back to the multi-use of the unit itself, like these MPOS units that are out there, which are, handheld devices, right? Whether it's a tablet or a mobile computer. I think that Andy kind of opened up the door and the use of whether it's communications or other things. So I was in a large sporting goods store, name unknown or unsaid, but it was a good customer experience in the sense that we were trying to get shoes, and what they do is they just, you tell the attendant, what are you looking for? And then they can see if they have it in the back. Right, and so they're using this device for scanning, they're using it for looking up stuff. I don't know. What do you think, Jeff? In your world, are your customers asking you for multi-use devices, like not just the point of sale, not just the MPOS part of it, but what about this idea of using the device for multiple uses, communication, lookup, endless aisle, those types of things?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head, Dean, because there's not just the matter of the store associate on the floor helping customers. That's definitely one of the popular scenarios that we're seeing and responding to with our market needs. But there's also the physical inventory counts and the receiving of purchase orders, and the list goes on and on. The manager that wants instant access to reports, that doesn't want to have to walk over to a terminal or take up a terminal when during busy periods of the store. So yeah, we're seeing that devices that are more capable to perform greater functionality are definitely what our resellers are gravitating towards for a number of scenarios.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the kind of the frictionless environment that we all want to kind of live in.
Yeah,
like,
very
oh,
much so.
oh, you got it, the product's here. Oh, okay, can I check out right now? Or,
Yeah.
oh, I have to walk all the way over there or wherever, kind of a thing. Yeah,
No,
right.
you appease the customer, and again, you're helping out the employee by just giving them one device to do everything, not 6 devices they've got to figure out how to tote around and take you up to a cash wrap to check you out too. So
Yeah, seems right.
Andy, you opened the door earlier too, talking a little bit about payments and the PCI 4.0 implementation in particular that's underway here. So let's dive a little further into that. So if shifting over to this payments side of the questions here, what should we be doing right now proactively to help organizations with this transition? And what does this mean for the continued evolution rather of contactless and other non-traditional payment types? I think we've hinted at that a little bit, and for the device side, but what does this mean on a broader level of how do we go out and tackle this, knowing that there's new guidelines, new implementation going underway here? Again, I don't know as much about payments as I should, other than I just like to pay for things, but I'm hoping you can help us understand a little bit more about where there might be some opportunities at play here.
Yeah, no, sure, John. And Andrew kind of started touching on it a little bit. I think as it comes to MPOS, there's already been things in previous versions of PCI that we're applying to MPOS. But I think the reality of it is that when we look at where retailers are today, I think it was Verizon who did a report last year, released a report last year around payment security. And it was a shocking number that I think only about 43% or so of retailers were actually in full compliance of the PCI. So when you think about that, and that was actually up somewhere in the area of 15% from the prior year. So when you think about where retailers are today, there is a long way to go to get fully compliant for most retailers. And so I think what 4.0 really does is represents an opportunity for retailers to reset and come up with a plan. So I think it's, it really starts with talking to your customers about where are they today? Do they actually know where they are today and know where their gaps are? With 4.0, there's some good and bad things in there, good news and bad news for retailers. On the positive side, there's actually a little bit more flexibility in PCI 4.0 to a certain degree because it allows retailers to come up with a customized approach to meet some of the standard requirements. The downside to that is that's great for your enterprise class companies who have the resource to do that, but the requirements to actually show that you have a strong plan, have tested it, and have the proper training in place, to actually be compliant with that customized plan could be challenging for some smaller retailers to actually implement. So I think ultimately it starts though with talking to your retail customers about where they are today. Do they even understand? And if they don't understand where their gaps are, is starting to get some assessments rolling, bringing in a QSA to actually look at where they are. And obviously it's going to vary from depending on the tier of the retailer, right? The higher up you're going to go, the more stringent the requirements are on that retailer. So, but starting with understanding where you are, it would be the first place that I would say you're going to need to help out.
Interesting. Andrew, your comments on PCI Forward, the transition thereof?
Yeah, so everything Andy said, I'm 100% aligned with. For me, when I see PCI 4.0, the first thing I think of is security and cardholder data. The reality is that, gold, cardholder data is gold. I don't know how else to say it. You can't let it go. You got to protect it, and you got to do everything you can to protect it. And as long as there's that mentality, it's really the right way of doing things, right? Obviously it's good for long-term business as well as, making sure that you don't have to pay fines and all, but ultimately it's really comes down to, something, in terms of the security of getting into the cardholder data, and then once you have the cardholder data, making sure that it doesn't escape, right? And it doesn't show in the clear, and those types of things, again, need to have a conversation, like Andy said. You need the QSAs, you need your people to actually tell you the things. And again, for smaller businesses, maybe not so much they have QSAs, but at the end of the day, they should be asking the question, does your payment solution, meet these needs? Is my cardholder data protected? Is there multi-factor authentication when I'm logging into my point of sale application? All of these things sort of combine and sort of build toward the greater. And then again, it's a hard conversation, but it's something that absolutely is required. You got to protect the data, right?
And Dean, Andrew brings up a great point too, around, some of the, of what is being asked of retailers with 4.0. And I think going back to your original question about, where can retailers start? One of the new requirements, does talk specifically about making sure there's training programs in place and awareness of your employees, around addressing phishing and social engineering, and how you look at engineered attacks and things of that nature. So I think there is, some of the easy steps to start getting towards that compliance is making sure that you have those workforce development programs in place that your employees are, trained properly. And then also implementing things like two-factor authentication, for anyone that has access to any of the systems. So those are some really fundamental things that are basic requirements that you should be doing for your business anyway to make sure that you're protecting your security of your data. And that's ultimately what PCI is doing, right? It's protecting the data that you're housing. And so it's best practice anyway to be doing that. So it's a great place to start, actually. And that would be one thing I would certainly recommend.
Always a challenge if you ask me, because it's incumbent upon the reseller to try to advocate compliancy with their end users, right? But at the end of the road, was it Andrew? You said 43% still are not compliant to PCI standards. So it's like, so I don't know what we can do about that. Jeff, I know you're not a PCI expert, but your take on, retailers or your, end users and their apparently 50% of them don't really care about PCI. I don't know if
50% don't care about your security. It's fine.
I don't know of another way to phrase it, right? I mean, but we've known that for forever. PC becoming compliant. It's like, yeah, okay, whatever. Maybe we're compliant. We don't care until we get hacked, I guess, or something happens. I don't know. Just your take on the whole thing. The reality of it.
It all started with the card brand oligopoly having a problem, coming up with a problem they couldn't solve, so they made it everyone else's problem. We start there, and then as a software company, we understood that we had a way to skirt this issue entirely, at least as it relates specifically to PCI, with the advent of semi-integrated payments. And so that's the strategy we've taken as a software developer. That doesn't get our customers off the hook for these requirements.
Right.
In SMB, it's really complicated for retailers to understand what this all means. But the way I look at this is an opportunity for resellers to educate customers, because one of the fastest growing areas for IT services is security, digital security, and the advent of what's happening with cloud and the exposure that happened in the starting 10, 15 years ago with data breaches. And so there's an awareness about all this stuff, but really this is an opportunity for resellers to have discussions with their customers to build trust and credibility around looking at their organization and their enterprise as a whole as it relates to security and how PCI fits in. But I can't comment specifically to PCI 4.0 because we have other fish to fry at our company.
Right. No, I think that's brilliant, and it backs up what Andy was saying. This is a good time to reset, right, Andy? Is that what you're saying? Or for organizations to say, hey, what is our exposure? What is our position as it relates to the security here? And is this a good opportunity to reevaluate the whole thing and get caught up, kind of a thing, right? So good advice there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think also, if you're a VAR listening to this and thinking like, hey, I don't know where I really sit in this whole equation. What Andy was just talking about there about re-educating and training sessions and, dive into cybersecurity needs or a fundamental understanding of like how to make sure that you're not falling victim of these scams and these hacks or whatever. That could be something you offer up. Maybe it's not your bread and butter necessarily, but if you're fluent in this stuff, if you know someone that could come in and help out with that, that's just the kind of thing that you could approach some of your customers and say, hey, I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel or do anything special with you, but it sounds like you're trying to get compliant here. We've got some folks that we can come in and help train your people. Let us help you do it. That's a value add we can add here. Maybe it's even something you do for low cost or free, just as, for them being a customer to help them out. So never hurts to throw that a little extra value add in there, since that's what we call ourselves at.
For sure.
If we're gonna put that value add in there, you better have some value to add. So.
Oh man.
All right, well let's get into the software angle here, and Jeff, we're gonna lean on you a bit more for this one since that's your bread and butter, obviously too. But as more of retailers, especially again on the SMB level, start moving from Windows software to cloud-based. They understand like, hey, we need to get off-prem, we need to go to the cloud. We have multiple locations we need to connect together. We need to have better control over our data. And you've got a lot of startup companies and restaurants and retailers that are going to start off there too. So how important is it for VARs to bring in software partners like Retail Management Hero that can help customize a POS to specific segment needs, not just a one size fits all, drop it in, here you go, here's your POS, but to actually figure out what a specific segment of retail, whether it's grocery, hardware, a taco store versus a fine dining establishment or whatever, how important is it to have that kind of relationship with someone that can do that?
That's a great question. I'm going to try to be concise with the answer, but it doesn't lend itself to being concise. Again, in SMB, we've seen a general trend for highly capitalized companies like Toast in hospitality to come in with sort of cloud native applications. And the mind share of customers is that the cloud is the future, when in reality, there's always been a pendulum around on-premise and cloud computing. And really, as a software developer, we want to try to look at technology objectively and find the best attributes of cloud computing with on-premise and build that into our product strategy over the course of our roadmap. So you have newer upstarts that are cloud native, and then you have companies like RMH, which have started with on-premise architectures, ours specifically is SQL.NET based, looking to modernize and hybridize their architecture. Now, it is generally true that cloud applications are harder to customize and more rigid in terms of not being as flexible and supporting very specific industry segments and the specific niche requirements that are implied. I'll take a pharmacy as an example. Pharmacies have quite different requirements than supermarkets do because of all of the drug regulation and prescription processes and things like that. So we've seen cloud applications focus on industry segments specifically and not be very multi-purpose or multi-segment oriented in a lot of cases. Not so much in hospitality, but certainly in specialty retail. So the VAR is left with this. The other thing that the VAR has to really consider as they look at picking up a cloud application is that typically the partner programs for cloud products are less rich than they are for on-premise applications, which are more, by definition, multi-segment, more horizontally aligned. So in the case of Retail Management Hero, we actually have partners that go across the board in terms of who their target customer is based upon the fact that we're a horizontal product. You can take our product and go into liquor stores, and we have partners that focus very heavily just on beer, wine, and liquor. We also have partners that are more enterprise oriented that have taken pieces of our product in our suite and gone into pharmacy and customized it specifically with their value add of deeper focus on pharmacy capabilities to result in a very industry specific solution that we would have never gotten to on our own. So I guess bringing it all back around, the VAR has to kind of consider before they choose products, because there's really a tight coupling between who the vendor's target market is and who the VAR targets as their market. And if the VAR is comfortable in one segment, thinking about a software vendor to partner with to go into that market, be careful, buyer beware, be careful of selecting a cloud product if you think you want to go multi-segment, because what that often means is selecting multiple vendors on the product side. So these things are interconnected and related, but it is very important if they want to focus on multi-segments to think about the VAR, the ISV products ahead of time before they select their vendors based upon their business strategy and their vision for how they grow.
Yep, good stuff.
Yeah. Andy, Andrew, any additional thoughts there around partnering with software partners and to kind of customize?
Yeah, I think, just to add to Jeff's comment, I think the other challenge when you start dealing with more segmented cloud providers is how many partners as a VAR do you really want to manage, right? How many relationships do you want to have there? And can you add enough value to all of those partners to actually be a meaningful partner for them? And if the answer to that is you can't because you're too spread out, then how strong of a relationship are you going to have in return? So I think it's really a balance, right? You know, there needs to be some level of segmentation. You know, obviously an apparel company is not going to use the same exact tool that a grocery store is going to, right? Apparel needs to worry about things like color and size, you know, in their point of sale, and grocery needs to worry about things like weight. You know, so there is certainly a balance of a certain level of customization for industry. Or, you know, Dean, I certainly don't want, you know, my pizza shop using the same, you know, point of sale that's being used in apparel, right? I want to make sure I get that pepperoni and the right toppings on each, you know, on half of my pie before, you know, I don't want to get a red pie or a green pie. I want some pepperoni and sausage, you know?
That's a good point.
This is true.
The only thing that I would actually add to everything that Jeff and Andy said is that I think Jeff and his company are a very brave lot. The reason I say that is because, you know, personally, the experiences I've had, point of sale is a very long, difficult decision for a lot of people. It's a big it runs your whole business if you can look at it that way, and so it's not a trivial decision. And I think a lot of small businesses, SMBs, they see, you know, the pretty hardware in certain places. They see, you know, an all-in-one cloud, and yeah, those things are great, and yeah, there's a level of customization you can do. But again, I think to be really successful in your industry, wherever you are, what vertical you play in, you need to have some level of you know, customization that really meets your customers' needs. And again, that's why I say Jeff is a very brave guy, because software, point of sale software is not an easy thing. It's a very long cycle, and on top of it, the customers, you know, they have so many different requirements. It's absolutely crazy how much there is. So anyway,
well, they don't call him retail management hero for nothing.
Right.
You know, there's got to be some bravery there. So.
They are the heroes.
Hear about that name. That our software helps our customer be the hero. We are not claiming
there
to
we
be
go.
Good stuff.
All right. Well, okay. We started off talking a little bit about Zebra's refresh the base.
Yes.
So let's talk about refreshing or replacing established point of sale, because we know that can be a pretty big uphill battle for our VARs going out there to try to figure out, like, hey, I know these guys are using something that's outdated, it's outmoded. They probably know that too. But, you know, making that shift, that switch can be a pretty monumental undertaking.
True.
So we've done some surveys around this on our BlueStar Nation blog. One of them we did with restaurant owners. 49% of them said they would not consider changing their point of sale. Another survey we did with retailers, 38% of them said they would not consider. So that's a pretty
so
sizable,
4 out of 10 are like, no thanks.
Yeah, it's a pretty sizable battle you're facing there, folks that will just kind of already, when you walk in the door, saying, no, we have no particular plans to change. So, you know, what tips do you have for working with those? Not necessarily even on the side of like trying to force them to change, but if you do encounter that, you know, alongside that effort to maybe get them to change, but if you do encounter the hard no, we're just not going to change, we're satisfied with where we are. Any kind of tips do you have for uncovering or creating new opportunities to sell, you know, other technologies, other things, you know, if that point of sale aspect seems to be off the table? Andrew, why don't you kick this one off?
So the biggest part about switching, I know that, so again, from a retailer or a restaurant perspective, SMB perspective, it's a bit harder for me, but there are customers that are actively looking at it and talking about making changes. There's probably, you know, out of the last, you know, 10 customers I've talked to, maybe about half of them are talking about making switches. There's a variety of reasons why they're looking to it. You know, what they have today isn't meeting their needs, or it's a lot, you know, it's very difficult, or, you know, it's making changes. It's the agility that the larger customers are looking for that I see, right? They're looking to be able to make changes on the fly, do certain things a little bit more, have more control versus the standard older, you know, types of point of sales. That's where some of the newer stuff sort of seems to fit in, is that there's a lot more flexibility for these people. You know, it all, you know, when you're talking about switching or upgrading, it really comes down to, you know, how much pain you want to tolerate and how how much, it's really required. Like, there are businesses that, do, something small or something, fairly standard, then they can get away with things for a while. But the more complexity that you start adding to your business, it becomes an inevitability. You've got to start thinking about, is this going to be a long-term thing, and how do we make it a long-term thing? And then so those are the sort of the starting points. And again, as I mentioned in the last segment, effectively, it is not a short-term cycle. It's not a short conversation. It's a conversation that takes, months to possibly even years. People have been thinking about it, and then they'll plan it for the following year, and then they'll get funding the next year. And it's just like, so it's not a simple process. But again, you have to start the conversation. Do you have what you need to compete, not just for today, but tomorrow, maybe 5 years down the road? And if the answer is no, you really need to start thinking about what is it that's going to put you in the position that you need to be. And that's the sort of conversation that I usually have with my customers, right?
Yeah, terrifying with a little obsolescence.
Yeah, right.
Do it or die.
Yeah.
Andy, what about you? What does your team do when they're going out there and they get some hard no's, or no, we're not doing this. Go away. We just don't want to have this conversation. Do you guys pivot? Do you have talking points? Are they similar to what Andrew mentioned?
Yeah, I don't know that there's a one size fits all answer to that, because it really comes down to understanding your customer and what they're looking to achieve and where they are with their experience. I would say, first of all, when it comes to the hard no on the point of sale, my gut tells me that's probably being answered from a software standpoint, not necessarily a hardware standpoint, because with the software, you're talking about that retailer's ability to transact and also their employee training and the customer experience that gets impacted by a change of software platforms. I think, there's opportunities, if that's the case, to still look at the hardware they're using and how they're using that equipment. So it might be about modernizing and incorporating mobile point of sale into that solution. It could be about, upgrading other components, their scanners, for example. There might be faster scan times on newer scanners than older ones. It could be around replacing some of their printers and maybe incorporating some Bluetooth printers to put them in different parts of the store so that their store associate experience is a little bit better when they're with their customer. They can actually transact on a mobile device and send that receipt, if they want to have a physical receipt, to someplace else in the store that the store associate can grab. That's not necessarily changing their point of sale. It's adding more technology on top of their existing platform. But ultimately, for me, I think we would have a conversation around what does that experience look like today? What is the ideal experience look like? And then also, we talked about it last time I was on the podcast, John, is that what is the store associate experience like? And is there friction in that store associate experience? Because anytime your store associates are feeling friction, your customer is going to feel it. So how can we remove friction from both of those processes and help the retailer in that way?
Definitely. Jeff, what about you on that software side? If someone's the hard no and it's because of the software, what do you guys say and do with them?
Well, I think this is just an opportunity to really understand why a little bit more. If plan A was to switch or upgrade their point of sale and they're not receptive to plan A, my first question is why? Because the more you understand what pressures they're feeling and what fears they have or risks they perceive by making this when you otherwise think it's a good idea for them, the more you can be on their side and thinking about how they look at what their next plan is. And if you have a bag of tricks that has a lot of other tools in it, a lot of other services or products to sell, just that discussion alone of having the insight into why they won't switch might open up a door to sell them something else. That really the goal here should be to secure a relationship and a trusted, respectful, rapport with the customer. So that's what I would say at the top level.
And let's get into the, because obviously one of the issues is always going to be cost. What do I need to replace? It's running on Windows 95. I've had it for 25 years. The expense to go through to replace. Why do I need to do that? So Jeff, are you starting to see more as a service type of, our customers coming and saying, okay, forget the CapEx. Can you make this an OpEx or type of solution? Are you winning deals by offering something like that, or What just your take on that in general?
There's a lot of different attitudes and perceptions out there about this, and we don't know enough to make a decision that wouldn't be perceived by our partners and customers to be hostile by some. To say we're going to only offer it this way. So we offer our products both ways, and we allow our partner to have that discussion with the customer to suit their needs. What I will reflect on that's related to this question about switching or upgrading point of sale is that, listen, retailers don't fix something that isn't broken. The number one reason that they want to switch or upgrade their point of sale is to respond to something that is broken. It's not working for them anymore. Whether that's the product, whether that's the service they're getting, whether that's a capability limitation that they now have because they're growing and they want to try something new, or whether it's not likely to just be that a shinier toy comes up in their view and they're excited about the possibility of a new, better mousetrap. So really having the insight into that what is broken, what are you trying to do in the future that you can't do now? Are you experiencing death by 1,000 paper cuts because every time you need something you're charged for it? Those are all things to be mindful of.
Yeah,
that's true.
I think the only other things I'll add here is, if you feel like you are in that situation where it's just the hard no, like, yeah, I'm sorry, it's not going to happen. Again, to your point, if it ain't broke, why are we going to bother fixing it? Well, then fine. If it's within your wheelhouse and your capabilities, try to do some pivots. Ask some questions about other stuff going on in their business. I mean, it's kind of.
Or they seeing the pressures in those ways.
Yeah, it's kind of sales 101. But but I think sometimes if you start asking questions about other parts of their business, one, it might lead you to other business that you can win. It also might lead you to actually back to that POS conversation at some point. So maybe you're talking about stuff like inventory management. Maybe you're talking about like, hey, are you planning or do you currently offer like delivery, curbside pickup? Do you want to get into omni-channel? What's your printing status look like? How are you doing marketing to your customers right now? You get into some of that stuff, and maybe you have other technology you can offer up to them. But a lot of that stuff is probably going to tie back into the point of sale as well. So maybe if you can, if you start that conversation, you go down that path of like, yeah, we really want some better inventory management. Like, what happens at the register versus what's happening in the back room or in our warehouse are not connected in any way. It does, we don't have any real-time info. Great. Hey, maybe if we upgrade your point of sale and also upgrade what's going on in the inventory management side of things, all those things can work together to make that a better experience, right? It's the kind of the backdoor way into potential.
Yeah, but it all ties back to the POS, right? I think Andrew kicked it off right by saying it's mission critical. Yeah. The decision on POS is this is mission critical because if I don't have this, I don't really have a store that's up and running. And so it's critical. It's good to tie in those things. I think, the play of, the addition of a kiosk or digital signage, or are you interested in these other technologies could be a backdoor into.
And I just think, maybe for a lot of retailers, especially, if you're just like working with a mom and pop store or, local regional chain or something that hasn't given this stuff a lot of thought, they may think when you're having that conversation, that is literally all you're trying to do is you're trying to sell them a new cash register or some new software to ring folks up. And they think that's the basics. Like it's, I'm good. I can ring folks up. I get their payments and it's all good. Why do I need to change anything?
Yeah, right.
Not realizing that the interconnectivity with the rest of their business that can potentially be involved there too.
For sure. Yeah.
All right. Hey, this has been a fantastic set of questions we've gone through here, but we do want to open it up for our audience to start asking some questions.
Yes.
If you haven't done so already, open up the GoToWebinar dashboard. There's a little questions tab there. You can type a question in there. I'll be happy to relay that to our panel.
It doesn't get to be a better panel than this. So if you got questions,
yeah, no doubt. If you're not going to take advantage of this opportunity, what are you doing here? Are you trying to get some kind of credits or something?
Yeah,
I don't
really.
know. There's no training credit to get out of this. No? I'm sorry, I hate to tell you. I mean, I could make up something and send it to you. It's not
TEConnect certified. That's
exactly. Right. Before we do that, though, while we're waiting on getting some questions, a big thank you once again to Zebra and all of the sponsors of our TEConnect podcast, our TEConnect program. We could not do what we do without you.
This is true.
Again, if you're listening to this, if you're not already someone who listens to the podcast, this is a perfect opportunity to get involved with our show. We've done over 150 episodes over the last, what are we going on, 4 years now? I guess we've been doing
that
this.
Long? We'll go 3 years. What?
So there's plenty of backlog, plenty of back episodes to get into, lots of talks about retail and POS, inventory. We talk about a wide breadth of stuff and a lot of different topics, a lot of different industries. If you can find a lot of different places to go to YouTube. the BlueStar YouTube, we have a TEConnect podcast playlist there. You can find all of our episodes there to watch it at any time. And if you just like to listen to audio podcasts on the go, whether you're working out, doing the dishes, whatever it might be, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Podbean, anywhere that podcasts are found. So perfect time to go subscribe to us and check in on some old episodes and keep up with the new stuff as it comes out in the future.
Absolutely. Yep.
All right, let's wrap up here. Normally at the end of our podcast, we have a segment called Value to the VAR, which is kind of our way of wrapping up our conversation with a takeaway for our audience. But instead, this time, that's where we figured, hey, we've got folks actually watching this who can ask their questions of what takeaways they want to get out of this. So let's dive into it. I've got a couple questions that have already come in from folks that are watching right now. Here's the first one here. This kind of refers back to our initial question about switching over to purpose-built devices from the consumer.
Yes.
And this person's concerned a little about the security side of things. So as much as having POS being able to multi-function in other areas apart from payment is a good thing, obviously, what about the cyber dangers that may be associated with it? So what thoughts do you guys have about that, about the security angle of switching, from maybe multiple devices to a single device that includes the payment aspect, but also inventory management and all the other stuff.
Yeah. Andrew, maybe you got a take on that.
Yeah. So there's a couple ways that you address that today, right? So the traditional way of addressing it today is that you have like a traditional mobile payment terminal from, the large, the payment companies that are, basically bolted onto the back of, of core devices, consumer or enterprise. And effectively, they isolate the consumer device to just be, the data transport, for example, and all the payment happens on the payment terminal. That's been around for many, many years, and that's the traditional way of doing mobile payment. There's goods and bads with all of those things. That's one way of doing it. When we talked a little bit about the future of payment, or at least the next generation of payment, we talked about this, these COTS-based payment, commercial off-the-shelf device payment. And there you would be able to take, for example, a Zebra device or an iOS device, or any device really that's officially an Android device or officially an iOS device, download the app and connect the device. And you're like, well, again, the question, well, what about security? So these solutions, these next generation of solutions, the reason why they're different from Android payment terminals is because there's a cloud security aspect to it, to the specification, that actually requires you to run security checks on the commercial device before a transaction, during a transaction, and after a transaction. So it's always maintaining that. And when you don't have the security that you need, payment is disabled, whereas the rest of the device still remains functional. And again, there you're able to download any app you want, install any app you want, do whatever you want. And those are the two different ways that you have you address the security aspect. So going to in this traditional sense, you have the ability there. Everything is contained within the payment terminal. In this next generation of payment, it's cloud-based, and there's a security check that runs on the device, ensuring security. And then with Android payment terminals, it's a lockdown terminal. You basically need special rights and permissions to be able to install apps and do those things. So that's fairly secure in and of itself. But the problem there is that's a double-edged sword. It's secure, but you can't really install a ton of apps. If you have 10 apps that you have to install on that device, and every app and every update requires a special key and approval, that's 20 times that you got to do that within a year. How many businesses are prepared to do 20, 30, 40, hundreds of updates and approvals just for a payment terminal, right? And so this is where it's a great device. It looks great. It feels great in your hand, and it does exactly what it's supposed to do. But again, there's downsides. So this is where, customers need to decide, what is it that I'm trying to do? Am I being single purpose? Am I going to be multi-purpose? If you're going to be single purpose, not a problem. You can choose traditional mobile payment without a host device. You can choose an Android payment terminal. And then if you want to be multifunctional, you can go the traditional payment, the bulky device with everything strapped together, or you can go with this new next generation of COTS-based payment, which again has the security, cloud security to be able to do the things that you need to do.
Interesting. Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah, definitely. Jeff, Andy, anything else you'd add there?
Yeah, I think what I'd add, John, is I would think about it this way. So if the concern is having all of your different information and functionality on one device, and that poses a bigger security risk, what I would ask back is it a bigger risk to have one device with all your information, or is it a bigger risk to have 4 or 5 devices that you need to protect? Because at the end of the day, if you get into one device, that can get you into a network that can give you access to everything within your organization. So is it easier to maintain one device and secure one device, or 4 devices?
Good point.
There you go. There's your answer.
Unless your job is.
Go ahead, everyone, loves Batman, wants the Batman belt, but then when they actually go into retail, they're like, I don't want the Batman belt.
Too many gadgets, yeah. Were you going to add something?
No, go ahead.
Okay. So another question we got came in here. This could be a loaded gun one with a lot of answers, but what is the biggest change for point of sale that you have seen in the last 5 years, not including mobile POS?
Who wants to take that one?
I would, I'm happy to say that if there's one, it's the notion that point of sale used to be looked at as something that a store associate did on a terminal, and that now point of sale is omni-channel. COVID came along and changed all the different buying and fulfillment scenarios from a brick and mortar perspective to pick up at curb and buy online and all these other variations. And so mobile devices and technology, as well as the consumer shopping behavior of millennials and Gen Zs being more comfortable with this stuff, have kind of turned the traditional sense of terminal-based point of sale on its head, with a brand new demand for flexibility in workflow scenarios, device configuration, and the whole layout of the topology of point of sale, and how retailers even think about point of sale. So I would say that the term point of sale is a little bit anachronistic. That really this represents more of a retail workflow than it does about a transaction over a counter between a consumer in a store and a store associate.
Well said.
Yeah, definitely. Any other thoughts, the rest of you? Anything that's really changed about point of sale?
I would agree with everything Jeff's saying. The only thing that I would add to that is self-checkout and self-service. I think that's the biggest trend that's really dominated over the last couple of years, and it's growing. Is it the right thing? There's a lot of the kiosk sort of space, was probably there's a couple of big brands that drive the experience, or at least drove the market. Everyone thinks that that's the future, but what's interesting is that some of these original players in self-checkout actually don't like it, not because of what you hear on the news, but because it's a flow thing, and it's the user experience issues. And so again, like Jeff said, there's you have all these different ways of talking and communicating, but ultimately that communication really needs to be crystal clear between the customer and the merchant, so that these types of experiences can really excel, right? Like self-checkout is heading that way, but again, people love it or hate it, but that is the biggest trend that I've seen.
Yeah,
that old generational thing that we keep talking about around here, right? Yeah,
it is indeed.
Grandma and grandpa gumming up the works at the self-checkout. That has a negative impact on everybody else around.
Say that.
And everybody loves it, but but there's always, it just takes one to kind of mess the whole thing up for everybody. So let's talk about payments again real quick, because again, a lot of folks, when they mentioned what they wanted to hear about, wanted to talk more about payments. Are there any other kind of payment trends that all of you are following, or things that you think it's important that we be paying attention to and talking about when it comes to the world of payments?
Yeah, so I think a lot of people are eager to see contactless grow as a form of payment, and I think that that's something that everyone's driving to. The problem is that right now, even though probably 50% or more have it configured or access to it, only about 20% use it in a day-to-day basis. One of the things that I keep telling people is, everyone's like, well, contactless, tap and go, it's awesome, right? And it is, no questions about it. But the problem is that when our parents start using it on a regular basis, that's when ubiquity kicks in. That's when it becomes, the primary. And until then, you still need to be able to support the different ways the customers want to pay. You can't turn a customer away because they don't have their contactless card enabled or their Apple Pay or Google Pay configured, right? You got to be able to support them in every modality. And that's really, one of the things that people are asking, like, well, what about contactless? When is that going to take over? And that's really, it's going to be a while. We're still trying to kill magstripe, right? As an industry. That's, how long has that been? So, there are other parts of the world that are doing it faster, but fundamentally, we've got to, again, it's going to take a while. And the clearest sign that I can see is when my parents start using it, then I know that it's prime time, right?
Yeah.
And there you should be over.
Someday that'll be our kids talking about us saying,
yes, right. Yeah.
When my mom or dad starts using it, they don't know it's actually happened. So my thing I always go back to is the gas station.
Yeah.
The moment that a gas station starts taking like contactless payments, they don't know we've actually shifted a little bit.
There's a couple out there that do that.
Do they? Well, that's true. I
Yeah.
know it's like Costco does.
Yeah.
We're getting there.
We're getting there.
It's one. I always feel they're one of the last ones that make any kind of payments changes whatsoever.
Talk about an investment. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Jeff, Andy, any additional thoughts on payments from either of you?
Yeah, I was going to say one thing I'll add on top of what Andrew said is I would say as a VAR, work with your retailers to make sure they're implementing the technology that they have, right? One of the things that drives me crazy is when I go into a retailer that has a PIN pad that is contactless, and then you go to tap on it and it doesn't work because they haven't activated the features, they haven't implemented it properly. And that, talk about a bad customer experience. I love tap to pay, I love using digital wallets. Things of that nature. And so when I go to do that and I'm sitting there tapping it 4 times and then the store associate finally says, oh yeah, we don't do that. I'm like, well, the symbol is right there on your pay pad, on your PIN pad. So how about, working with your customers to make sure they're leveraging the purchases they've already made,
Yeah,
so
preaching
true.
to the choir on that one.
So true. Yeah. Yeah.
No doubt there.
Let me help you to help me.
Definitely. All right. Well, I don't see any other questions that have come in from our audience here. But if you're listening to this after the fact, or if you're watching and you think of something later, don't hesitate to reach out to us.
You can always reach out to us.
You can email us, TEConnect@BlueStarInc.com. We're not going to have the answers for you, but we'll put you in touch with these brilliant people who might have those answers for you.
Yeah.
So don't hesitate to reach out if you have any of those additional questions. If you're listening later and you're like, man, I wish I'd been watching so I could have asked Andy this question.
Yeah.
Toss it out there. We'll be happy to toss it their way and have them answer that for you. But for now, let's wrap things up with our usual fun, exciting segment we like to do at the end of every episode of the TEConnect podcast. We like to have a little bit of fun.
We do.
By ending with a segment we call What's TEConnecting with You?
Yes.
This is where we just riff on something in the world of science, tech, business, innovation.
A little lighthearted here.
Just something we feel like talking about that day. Dean and I have done this over 150 times.
Yeah, we have.
We're actually not going to do it today. We're going to let just our panelists do it, save ourselves one of our tech connecting for a future episode.
All right.
But I'll let you guys kick it off. Jeff, I'll let you start this one. What's tech connecting with you right now? What are you excited about in the world of tech?
Oh my, we weren't prepared for this.
That makes it even better.
I'll tell you, I love playing with the Chat GPT. I was actually just preparing for this podcast. I was kind of doing a little bit of research on what the internet thinks is going on in retail trends, and typing a simple question into Chat GPT is so much richer than doing a Google search. So what's tech connecting with me is AI and where the use cases are in retail for it, and how we help our customers have a strategic advantage.
There you go. I'm gonna have to do a tally at the end of the year of how many people have answered ChatGPT. Question.
Well,
I can't
has
blame
anything
anyone.
been more impactful, just on general,
no doubt.
Wow
I mean,
factor in
if we
technology?
were doing this podcast back when I don't know, like the iPhone came out, or the electricity was first founded, I'm pretty sure that would have been the top of the list then. So it's
Jeff,
uncomparable.
Yeah, the big question, Jeff, is when does Cyberdyne take over? When are we dead? I mean, are you on that camp that like?
That's usually my question.
That is usually your question, but Jeff probably has a pretty good answer. I don't know. Are we 2-3 years out? Or are we what?
Well, the rate of acceleration is accelerating. I mean,
That's
it's
true.
just crazy. It's just crazy to try to think about what it's going to look like in 2 years, let alone 6 months.
For sure.
But no, I don't have an over/under on this one.
Fair enough.
Well, the good news is ChatGPT's data is only updated through 2021, I think.
That's right.
Yeah.
So we got a couple of years on it, right?
At least, right?
Wasn't it initially when they first launched it didn't actually even have information about COVID?
Right.
Like the very first iteration had
Yeah.
not been taught on up to COVID, so it didn't know COVID even existed yet at that
Right.
point. So
Yeah.
that's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, once it keeps like up to date with modern events, that's when maybe I'm going to be a little more scared when it knows what's happening in the moment. But
Yeah, fair enough.
for now, maybe we can still get potentially out in front of it if something goes wrong. Andrew, what about you? What's tech connecting with you right now?
So, to me, the thing that's sort of super interesting, and again, it's something that's been out there for a while, is RFID. And I know RFID is everywhere.
Yes.
But, my understanding is that the cost of the tags are dropping, and there are more retailers enabling the products that they have with the tags. And, the whole notion that, you wave a device and capture everything in your cart, and all of a sudden, you get a spit out of a bill and you pay it and then you tap and go. There is a vision for future frictionless checkout that you can see with this, right? It is something that can be done technically today, and it is something that people are working on, which is very cool. So again, to me, the RFID technology, is super interesting. Tracking technology, where someone's physically, positioned in the world, certainly has a lot of input data. So there's a lot of wireless technologies that I think about and how that impacts retail and daily life. And so those are the ones that are sort of top of mind for me.
Yeah. It's a good one, RFID. I mean, we've told the story. I like my daughter works at, somewhat of a major retailer, and they have RFID down to the SKU level, and it enables her. She can do a store count, actually 2 stores because they're right next to each other, full inventory count in like an hour.
But she already thinks that's too long.
She already does think that's too long, but she was just complaining
better.
The other day that what that actually did is free up the staff so that they can do order fulfillment for online orders in store. So they're still busy. They still,
That's the point.
They used to be doing 3-4 hours of inventory count. Well, that's down to an hour, but now spend the other 2-3 hours doing in-store.
I guess I get that because in my retail days, I liked it holding up in the back room for like 6 hours on a Friday to unbox all the inventory and put it out.
That's right.
And now if you told me like that the scanning piece could be done in no time and it was
in a blink.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, yeah.
I can understand but I wanted to crank up my music for hours on end and not have to deal with customers. I guess I get it. So
Andy, you got another tech connecting with? I know you were just on here a couple weeks ago, but maybe you got another one that's connecting with you.
Yeah, sure. I have one that I think John will like. Dean, I know it's going to hit a little home for you, so you might not enjoy it as much, but I saw an article today, and it's going to put one of your biggest pastimes at risk here, because I think next to bourbon, this might be one of your biggest hobbies. And so there was a story that just came out today that New York City banned TikTok on city-owned devices. So you're going to need to find a new pastime, my friend, I think, in the future.
Yeah, I hate to tell you, you're barking up the wrong tree there.
Same here.
For sure. Yeah. Dean's all about banning the TikTok. But
no TikTok.
It's one of those things. I find it fun. You'll never find me recording a video there. I do not have.
You're a window shopper.
And I'm a creative guy, but whatever it takes to be that kind of person, that kind of creative person is just not my my mentality to do that. But I enjoy watching. There's lots of fun stuff.
So the city of New York banned it? Is that what you're saying, Andy?
And just on like city devices.
On city-owned devices, not being used in New York, but on their devices.
Yeah, I think what was it, the state of Montana that tried to do that also, and there's some litigation going on about that. So be interested to see where all that goes.
Andrew?
But what Andy is saying is actually super relevant because, I was watching, I have a teenage daughter and she's, in high school and, she never really watches television. When I was a kid, all the time, TV was on, watching baseball, watching TV shows, whatever. It's 100% TikTok and Instagram and these are the platforms that are the new advertising platforms for the future generations. We've got to find ways to leverage that technology so that you get, customers coming into the store and buying things, in the way that retailers want it. This tying things into those types of campaigns really, is sort of that's going to happen whether we want it or not. So, yeah, I'm not on TikTok. I'm not a social media guy, but ultimately, I see it all the time. Like, it's all of the kids these days, they're focused only on that. And this is where it's no longer Google that's providing this information. It's really, it's TikTok and it's, Instagram, and it's these social media sites that are driving, sort of interest and eyeballs and engagement. And then from there, how do you convert that into a retail store visit to actually convert into a sale? Like, these are, so again, it's a funny start, but Andy, but he's so right. It is one of the largest tech, sort of shifts that are happening, especially in advertising, right? I don't think television is going to be what it's going to be when my daughter's my age, right?
Yep. Yeah. We need a whole other webinar on these topics right here. You just opened up a can of worms there, my friend.
I know we were having some fun with it, but all kidding aside, I mean, social commerce is, coming in hot right now, right?
Yeah.
I was at Shop Talk back in March, which was obviously a pretty big show for our clients, and they, at that show, TikTok had a booth. I think Instagram had a booth. Snap definitely had a booth. They all have commercial offerings for social commerce, and it's an entirely new area that's really picking up steam. I mean, obviously YouTube, and you go back to the days of QVC and some of the other TV-based social platforms. Now you're seeing that convert to online.
Yep.
Yeah. We're not that far away. I mean, it's already happening. Brands that are making their name for themselves solely because of starting off on TikTok.
Oh, for sure.
And some of these other like short video platforms.
Yeah.
And I will not be surprised if in 10 years from now we're talking about some of the biggest companies in the world that were like, yeah, we got our start on TikTok. We were promoting our goods out there, and now we're one of the biggest retail brands in the country or something.
You're not getting those contracts as being an influencer? I thought
no,
you were like
I'm not yet.
Is it Andy that's the influencer? I don't know. Jeff Riley could clearly be an influencer in social media.
Well,
yeah, I think
good stuff.
I hate to say it, but I think we're probably all a little too old for that.
Yeah.
I feel like
we don't fit the demo.
There's a line of demarcation when it comes to your age and what can make you an influencer these days. And
I've been accused
we've
of
all
being
crossed
an
at
influencer,
this point.
but not a good influence.
Yeah, there you go.
Fair enough.
All right, that is what's tech connecting with us. It is time for us to unplug. As I mentioned, this episode will be out on August 31st at the TEConnect podcast feed. Check it out. Subscribe to the show. Big thank you to Andrew, Andy, and Jeff. Thanks to our audience who are watching today. And of course, a big thanks to Zebra for sponsoring this episode. Until next time, folks, please stay connected. TEConnect podcast is brought to you by Zebra. Make more, earn more, and sell more with Zebra.
Could you need any more?
No.
There's your marching orders.
I want all those things. Maybe not the selling part. I mean, I'm not a sales guy anymore, I suppose. But if I were,
if you had a sales staff, there you go. Yes, you get a staff to do that.
Zebra partners can combine promotions, spiffs, and trade-in incentives for a perfect sales trifecta of rewards.
Nice.
Developed to expand awareness within the Zebra reseller community, the Sales Trifecta campaign highlights the benefits of combining eligible and active promotions and incentives to increase partner margin, motivate sales reps, and drive customer opportunities. To learn more, check out the link in the show notes, but you must be a Zebra partner to access and take advantage of this campaign. So, sign up.
Why wouldn't you be?
Yeah, exactly.
Go sign up.
Do it now. TEConnect podcast is also brought to you by ELO. All right, we talked a lot about point of sale today, obviously.
Yes, we did.
Talking point.
Yep.
Modern point of sale goes beyond just having a touch display and cloud software.
Oh, this is true.
You need sleek, functional accessories, too.
Oh, tell me more.
ELO has that covered with their retail-hardened Z-Series POS stands.
Nice.
Each model of the Z stand offers cable concealment to keep counter spaces clean.
Gotta make it look good.
That's right. A single cable connection to add a customer-facing display, and compatibility with ELO's I-Series displays. The Z20 and 30 offer integrated I/O, and the Z30 can include an integrated customer display. So you got plenty of options here.
Absolutely.
The Z stands are also available as a component of prepackaged ELO POS Android point of sale solutions for compact spaces, full service to self-service versatility, or maximum connectivity with interactive CFD.
Nice.
To compare options and find the right stand for your next POS install, check out the link in the show notes or contact the BlueStar ELO team.